Friends, English Literature, Introduction to Poetry, On His Blindness, John Milton. Short questions with answers. Question 1. Why does Milton ask himself the question, doth God exact, deliver, light denied? Does God exact, demand, deliver from a man who has lost his eyesight? Answer. While Milton became blind even before the middle of his life, here half my days, he pondered deeply over the matter. As a result of his being blind, his one talent, his poetic gift, became useless with him because, with his eyesight lost, he could not do any work of writing. In this dark world and wide, he felt absolutely helpless, especially with regard to his use of his poetic gift. But he felt that as a servant of God, he was not doing his duty towards him by making use of his poetic talent, and as such he was not giving any account of his performance of duty. Under such a condition, he became afraid that his maker, God, might be dissatisfied with him and might chide him for his non-performance of duty towards him. This immediately gave a shaking to his sense of justice, which prompted him to ask himself the questions, doth God exact, deliver, light denied? The implication of the question is that God is absolutely just, and for him such a question is impossible, since demanding service from a blind man is not consistent with the sense of justice. Question 2. What answer does the poet Spirit of Patience give to the question, doth God exact, deliver, light denied? Answer. When Milton became blind, he felt that his poetic talent was left useless with him in this dark and wide world. He could not do any work or writing with his eyesight lost. But he felt that, as a servant of God, he should serve God with his poetic talent. But since he was not able to make use of his talent by writing, he became afraid that God might demand, deliver, or service towards him from a blind man. This question in its turn stirred his spirit of patience, which prompted the answer that God does not need man's work, or even his own gifts. God's estate is kingly. There are thousands of his angels who run over land and sea, unwearied, all the time, in order to carry out his order. In that case, it is absolutely unnecessary for him to demand any service from a blind man. Rather, it is the best of service on the part of an incapable man to bear mind burden that God imposes on him. So the poet's spirit of patience prompts him to conclude, they also serve who only stand and wait. Question 3. Explain the following with reference to the context, doth God exact, deliver, light denied? I fondly ask. And so these lines occur in Milton's sonnet on his blindness. This is the question which Milton asked himself when he became blind and feared God's displeasure for not serving God with his poetic power. Milton became blind even before the middle of his life, as he expresses this fact with, ere half my days, he believed that God had given him poetic power to serve him with. But since he became blind, he could not perform the duty towards God. So he was suffering from compunction for not having performed his duty to God. He was afraid that God might be angry with him and might chide him. At this point of his deep pondering over his condition, his sense of justice asserted itself and prompted him to ask himself the question, if God demands work from a man who has become blind. This question is a leading question which leads to the answer that God does not demand work from a blind man. This condition also indirectly emphasizes the justice of God. God is always just and does never do any injustice to man. Question 4. What reference do the context explain the following? They also serve who understand and wait. Answer. This line occurs at the end of the poem On His Blindness by John Milton, a great poet of the 17th century England. This is the resolution of the conflict in the mind of the poet when he became blind and could not serve God due to his blindness. When Milton became blind, ere half my days, he pondered deeply over the condition. He believed that the poetic gift that he possessed was given by God to serve him, but he could not serve him with that gift in his blind condition. So he became afraid that God might chide him for his not performance of duty to him. But his spirit of justice within his mind prompted the question if God exacts work from a blind man. But almost immediately, his spirit of patience within himself asserted itself and gave the answer to the question. The answer was that God does not need the work of any man or his own gifts to man. His state is kingly, thousands of angels post over land and ocean to serve him every moment. In case of a diseased man, like a blind man, it is only that he should bear his mild yoke without any protest, and he can serve God in the state of non-performance of his duty, only by the exercise of his patience. So the poet resolves his conflict by concluding that those who stand and wait serve him best. Question 5. Give a brief account of sonnet, or what is a sonnet? Describe its characteristics. Answer. The term sonnet derives from the Italian sonetto, which means a little sound. The sonnet originated in 13th century Italy, was developed by the Italian poet Petrarch, and was brought to England by Sir Thomas Whyte. It was greatly modified by the Earl of Surrey and Shakespeare, and to a lesser extent by poets since Shakespeare. The subject matter of sonnet was primarily doting lovers' hopes and pains. Donne shifted from the secular love to a variety of religious themes. Milton expanded the range to other matters of serious contemplation. An ordinary sonnet consists of 14 lines, usually in iambic pentameters, with considerable variations in rhyme schemes. On the basis of variations in the stanza form and rhyme scheme, there can be three types of sonnet. Number A, the Petrarchan, which comprises an octave rhyming A B B A A B B A and a sestet rhyming C D E C D E or C D C D C D. B, the Shakespearean or the English sonnet with 3 quatrains and a couplet rhyming A B A B, C D C D, E F E F G G. Number C, the Spenserian with 3 quatrains and a couplet rhyming A B A B, B C B C, C D C D, E E. In the Italian form, the octave develops one thought. There is then a tone, and the sestet grows out of the octave, buries it, and completes it. In the other two forms, a different idea is expressed. Each grows out of the one preceding it, and the argument, theme, and dialect are concluded in the ending couplet. Question 6. Discuss Milton's sonnet and characterize it as an Italian type. Answer. John Milton was a part of the 17th century, so he already had before him the models of 3 types of sonnet: the Italian, the Shakespearean, and the Spenserian. He chose the Italian model for his sonnet On His Blindness. Is a type of sonnet which conforms to the Italian model, though not in detail. On His Blindness is a sonnet of 14 iambic pentameter lines, and the rhyme scheme is AB, BA, AB, BA of the octave and CDE, CDE of the sestet. But he has not maintained the clear-cut division between the octave and the sestet so far as the physical structure of the sonnet is concerned. The eighth line of the octave does not end with a full stop, but runs into the sestet. I fondly ask, but patience to prevent that murmur soon replies, God doth not need either man's work or his own gifts. In the quoted lines, I fondly ask is the beginning of the eighth line, last line of the octave, and that murmur is the beginning of the first line of the sestet. The octave does not stop with prevent but runs on into the sestet. The theme of the sonnet is the poet's blindness, and his thoughts center around it. In the octave, the theme is introduced and the question is answered in the sestet, and thus the conflict in the poet's mind is resolved. Thus the sonnet is seen to have most of the characteristics of Italian sonnet. Question 7. Give a brief account, life sketch. Give a brief life sketch of John Milton. Answer. John Milton was born in Brady Street, Cheapside, London in 1608. His father was Money Scrivener. I repeat it, please. His father was Money Scrivener. Milton was educated at St. Paul's School, London, at Cambridge. He took his final degree in 1632. He abandoned his intention of entering church and retired to Horton, a small village in Buckinghamshire. In 1638, he left for a tour on the continent. He stayed some months in Italy. He was recalled to England by the news that civil war was imminent. He settled down in London. In 1643, he married a woman who left him almost immediately. This incident led Milton to write two strong pamphlets on divorce, which caused a great scandal at the time. In 1649, after the execution of the king, he was appointed secretary to the Council of State. He wrote numerous pamphlets in support of the Republican cause. His eyesight was failing. When the Restoration came in 1660, he was blind, poor, and alone. He escaped severe punishment and was given a nominal imprisonment. He retired to an obscure village in Buckinghamshire to write poetry. He died in London in 1674. Thank you, friends, for watching my video.